Hello guys, I am back from another video and today talk about what if Deku was in high school DxD. So in the last video we talked about how after, waking up in the middle of the night, he would be woken up by a magic circle from the Citri household. As after thinking about it, he would think that it's probably, probably Sona, but after thinking for a while, he would think, wait, why is Sona, basically teleporting here? I thought that he's going to, I thought she's going to just call me instead. But after the portal just summoned somebody, and that somebody was, Seraphol Leviathan. As after, welcoming herself onto Izuku's, bed, she would basically tell him that, her sister, aka, the lovely Sona, would basically, tell him that she wants to talk to him, or more specifically, wants him to come to the, school immediately. And after being told of this, he would be brought there. And after being brought there, not really brought, but more like, going there by himself, because of a little, battle happening, not really happening, but more like, getting ready for a battle, Izuku would basically wear his, newly, created armor, or, battle outfit, which consists of a typical, ghoul mask, which in this case resembles a skull, or at least a half skull. But either way, after he arrives there, he would notice everybody, mostly, the student council, setting up barriers, while, for the Orc Club, they were also getting ready in case of the battle happening. And so, after being told that apparently Schrodinger basically arrived there at the school earlier and basically told them that the war is finally coming, and saying that, this is a battle between them and the fallen angels. And after being told of this, Izuku was told to basically act as the defense as well. And after being told of this, he would basically set up some traps and also, summon out his, familiar, aka Zenogre, which is the three, basically, it's just a Cerberus version of, a Zenogre from Monster Hunter. Basically, it has three heads. And it's also the Stygian Zenogre, which is my favorite type of Zenogre because red lightning. Anyway, continue on. It still pretty much hurts, guys. If you don't know, currently my, wisdom tooth is basically growing out now, and it's absolutely hell. I can barely eat, and let's just say it's been pretty hard for me. But either way, when the fallen angels finally arrived, including Kokobeel himself, and also the, the little cat bastard, or at least the half, Komada, half, fallen angel bastard, aka Schrodinger, has arrived, they would basically, tell all of the other fallen angels to attack. And after telling them that, Izuku would jump in and would start slaughtering them. And also taking their DNA, becoming even stronger, which, is concerning as all hell, but either way, after, a bit of fighting, Kokobeel would finally reveal himself, and both of them would start fighting, but during the fight, Izuku would basically bring out this, Quinkei, and would stab him with it, and gaining his powers, but when he gained his powers, he would get 21 pairs of wings, but not only that, the newly created wings, which are coming from, from Kokobeel, would start turning white instead of the usual black. But not only that, the bottom wings would become, the darkest, while the middle one would become a grayish color. Meaning that he's basically sort of a full angel slash fallen angel slash demon hybrid. Yeah, that sounds concerning as all hell, but either way, and for some odd reason, let's just say, after gaining those traits, or at least the traits from, Kokobeel, he would basically lose all of his abilities from, from the side of, the devils. And after doing so, Izuku would basically, no longer have the time stop ability, or or any of the abilities that he had, like, for example, the ones that he got from the rogue, devils. But either way, after, doing so, he would start fighting against, Kokobeel once again, but during the fight, Selzin, which is apparently the name of the guy that basically created, the, sort of true Excalibur, because at the time they didn't really get, they didn't really get, the final Excalibur, which is, or at least one of the Excalibur fragments, aka, Excalibur Ruler. And after, creating it, he would basically give it to, a certain little cat boy, aka Schrodinger, and would tell him to basically attack, a certain little girl, aka, Kiba. And during the fight, he would explain that, apparently he was actually, or at least she was actually, a one of the experiments during the Holy Sword project, or one of one of the participants. And after saying that, Izuku would jump in and would basically fend him off. And when he was about to die and basically reform again, turning into smoke, Izuku would basically stop him and would basically capture him. And also, I think. Actually, never mind. Anyway, so after seeing her, she would also fall to the ground and would see a weird looking crystal, which is apparently what, those things, aka the, artificial, sword users would use, which is apparently just human souls condensed into a crystal, which apparently that thing is actually her friends, which, absolutely pissed him off, and so would start, as he would basically give him a pretty much, emotional speech to her, basically after, gaining that crystal. And after being told of that little speech, she would basically, be motivated and would start to, activate her, or at least finally manifest her balance breaker, which apparently her balance breaker is a sword that's basically a mix of both holy and, demonic energy. In this case, this weapon was called Sword of Betrayer, which, by the way, still sounds a bit cringy to say the least. But either way, she would basically fly off to basically fight against, Selzen after hearing that Selzen is there. And so after hearing about this, Izuku would also decide to basically fight off against, once again, Kokubile. As during the fight, Kokubile would basically wield the true Excalibur, at least sort of. As during the fight, meanwhile, there was also, a certain, Selzen boy over there, basically, being beaten by Kiba, as when he saw the sort of betrayer, he was a bit confused, seeing that it has both holy and, an unholy energy. But he would start to, put all of the pieces together, but before he can, Kokubio would jump in and would stab him by the Excalibur. And after doing so, he would say that it's time for, the little girl, aka, Kiba, to basically face her doom. And so he would get ready to slash at her, but Izuku would basically jump in and would basically take the hit. But instead of regenerating, he would start to fall, feeling like his powers are basically weakening a little bit, as he would fall to the ground. Thinking that is his chance, he would decide to try and, defeat, Izuku, aka their trump card. And everybody was just worried for him, including, Issei, because remember, in love, girl, yeah. And so she would basically try to, go towards him, including the rest. Like, for example, Rias and Sona. And for Sona, well, it's for obvious reasons. I mean, he is, going to be her, husband. And as for, the church girls, aka, also Irina and Zenobia, they would also want to, help him out. As while he was basically knocked out, he would basically wake up in a field, or not really a field, but more like a, in a desolate place. More specifically, it kind of resembles a desert, with several people being impaled by spikes, or, different types of pole arms, in this case. As after seeing all of them basically impaled, he would look over and would see a three-headed dragon. One side being red, with, not really red, but more like, black with red eyes. The other one with blue eyes, but with the entirely white, head, or I guess to say sort of body. While the middle one seems to be a half and half. Basically having, one side is basically red and black, while the other one is basically white and blue. As there was a man basically on top of a throne, on top of the, dragon. As he would seems to resemble, Vlad the Impaler from Fate, Extra CCC. But he would also wield a spear, and, a spear that's kind of a mix between, Guy Bolg and his spear from, Fate, basically from, Fate, and, a mix of, what is that spear that was wielded by, basically like the the cannon, pole arm of, of Hu Tao. Basically, that's what he's wielding, as he would have a helmet on the side, as he would explain that he's his sacred gear. And after saying that, before, we basically go back to the outside world, as before Kokubio can actually stab him with the Excalibur, a burst of light would appear, causing Kokubio to be launched back, as, after seeing this, Izuku would stand up wearing, some really spiky black gauntlets with a bit of accents of red, including some, boots, as he would wield the spear that was once wielded by, the man, which apparently his name was the Impaler. And after doing so, he would basically raise up his spear, as he would basically look up at Kokubio, as he would say his Sacred Gear's name. And apparently, his Sacred Gear's name, and I'm going to be changing it because at the time, I didn't really have a name for it. So, yeah, here's its actual name. Its name was... The name was Dracul. Yeah, it's a pretty simple name, but still. As after saying that, he would basically get ready to charge at him, but before we basically, see, Izuku basically stabbing him right in the chest, that's where we basically ended off the episode. So, yeah. So, let us talk about what happens next, ladies and gents. As before he can actually stab him, he would basically block the attack with the Excalibur, as he would say this. He would say, as Kokubio would say this. How? How are you still alive? He would say. As he would say this. Like I said, I'm not a devil yet, he would say. As he would basically, throw him back. After doing so, Izuku would basically, spin his spear a little bit, as he would say this. Now, let's try this out, he would say. As he would start to combine both his spear with a bit of his, demonic energy. As, after doing so, it would start to glow an even... Actually, would it be called brighter or darker? Because of the dark flames. Yeah, let's just say darker. As, after doing so, he would basically throw the spear, as the spear would basically split into multiple spears. As you say, shit, he would say. As, after saying that, he would start, flying off, but before he can, the spears would start following him like a freaking, heat-seeking missile. As you'd say, how the fuck are they following me? He would say. As before he can think anything else, he would get stabbed by one of them, as you'd scream out in pain. As more would basically come after, and after doing so, the spears would start spewing out more spears coming out of him. Just imagine how, in the Fate, what's it called? In the Fate Apocrypha anime, where, how, Vlad, in that series specifically, where he was, fighting Karna. Actually, that's sort of a spoiler, but, fuck it. As, during the fight, he would basically, touch him with his spear, and after doing so, when he was about to backflip, he would get, several, spears from, inside of him, basically inside of his body, and would basically explode out of him. Yeah, oh boy, just imagine something of that sort. As he would scream out even more in pain, as you would say, shit, how the fuck? As before he can say anything else, he would basically jump in once again, as he would say, prepare to die, he would say. As he would use his polearm, which, actually, it would have, an accent just like this, that, but, like a traditional polearm, where it have, it also, has a spear tip, and also has a scythe tip. Yeah, that's basically what it looks like. As after, doing so, he would use the scythe tip and would basically slash him right in the face. As his face would just be ruined, as he would say, you, he would say, as he would say this, you dare touch the hands, you dare touch me, he would say, as he would say this. I guess, he would say, I mean, I don't really consider you as, anything else but a little nuisance, he would say, as he would start twirling his, he would start to twirl his, his sacred gear, as he would say this. Now, let's try this out, he would say, as a dark-looking aura with several, electricity sparks, more specifically lead electricity, red electricity would start, leaking out of it, as he would say this. Now, Kazakli Bay, he would say, as after saying that, several spears would start to come out of this, spear, or polearm in this case, as it would start to launch towards, Kokubio. As Kokubio would start getting stabbed by his, would start getting slashed. Actually, more like stabbed. In in his remaining wings, as he would start screaming out in pain, as he would say, "You bastard!" he would say. As before he could say anything else, Izuku would jump in once again, as he would say, huh, "Take this," he would say. As he would kick him right in the side, and the spikes from his, new boots would basically, stab into him, causing him to be stuck there. As you'd say, as he would basically, spitting out a bit of blood, as you'd say, huh. Now, as after saying that, he would basically stab him right in the stomach with his spear, as he would throw him against the ground hard. After doing so, the rest of the others would basically, go towards the direction where the fight was going, as everybody would finally reach it, as you would see Izuku in this new form, as one of them would say this. Izuku, what happened to you? And what are those gauntlets and spears? Said, a pretty, impressed Saji, as he would say this. It seems that my sacred gear has finally awakened, he would say. As after hearing that, everybody would just just have their jaws dropped, as Rias would say this. Hold on, you have a sacred gear, she would say? As he would say this. Well, apparently I do, he would say. As after saying that, she would just, look at him in a pretty much a, in a pretty much new light. Mostly, pretty much a fuckable light, but still. As after doing so, he would basically start looking towards, Kokubio in his pathetic state. Now all of his wings are basically clipped from his body, as his head is basically bleeding, as one of his eyes is basically gone, his arm is gone, one of his legs is gone, as he would say this. Now, any last words, he would say, as he would say this. I guess, he would say, as, both of the girls, aka, the two exorcists, aka, Irina and Zenobia would just be there, as he would say this. Well then, may I ask you this? Why does God not intervene in these matters, he would say, as he would say this. What the hell do you mean, he would say, as he would say this. Why do God let these atrocities, like the ones from the Holy Sword Project happen, he would say, and the ones from the church, he would say, as he would say this. Actually, you have a point, he would say, as he would say this. Well, it's quite simple, he would say, as he would slowly start to stand up. As, sort of stand up. I mean, he's still pretty much, lost a leg, but he's basically holding onto a tree nearby, as he would say this. Well, it's simple, he would say, as he would scream out, God is dead, he would say. As after saying that, everybody would just be in disbelief. As Irina and Zenobia would say, no, it's a lie, they would say, as he would say this. Oh, it really is not, he would say. During the Great War, during the last battle between me and the rest of the other factions, as he would start telling a tale. During the battle between them, the fallen, the angels and the, devils, he would basically be on the side of the, fallen angel, as he would start fighting against God, and where God was killed. As he would start spouting out how God was nothing more than a false one, and he was easily beaten by the, by the dragons, aka, what's his name? With, the Drake, aka, the Welsh Dragon, and also the Vanishing Dragon, otherwise known as Albion. As he would say this. Oh, I absolutely loved how God was killed, he would say, and it was quite the impossible feat, he would say, as everybody was just shaken up after hearing this. Zenobia and Irina were just how all of their lives they basically, acted as God's, messengers, and after hearing that God is dead, their life's purpose is basically meaningless. Both of them would just start crying, saying, no, she would say, specifically, Irina, as she would say, all this, and as she would start crying, saying, I was separated by my two childhood best friends, so I can serve under God, but she would start crying even more, as Zenovia was just like broken. Just imagine one of those mind break things. No, not that. I swear to God, no. No, not that. No, something else. Nothing of that sort. Not the sexual kind. Well, the kind where you basically lost your mind. Yeah, that's basically what it is. And, currently now both of them are just like, both of them were just like, like absolutely just like saddened after hearing this. As for the others, they were just like confused and also quite, sort of devastated. Some of them were basically just like, God is dead? All of them would just say to themselves, including, Rias herself. Which, I mean, she doesn't really believe in God. After all, she is a devil, but still. And for the others, like, a certain, girl, aka, well, Aisha, well, she's currently, the saddest out of all of them because she absolutely believed in God. But hearing that God is dead, well, she was just like crying there, just like saying, so, all my life, acting as a priestess, she would start crying even more. As Izuku would say this, I see, he would say. As, after hearing this, he would say this. You're quite worthy, child, but, unfortunately, but before you can actually say anything else, Izuku would basically, grab his, his new spear, aka, Draco, or wait for a second, I meant Dracul, which is apparently the actual name of, not Drac the Ripper, no, I meant Dracula, as in, Vlad the Impaler's, father, as, Dracul, as in the spear, would basically be stabbed through Kokobil's head, as he would say this. Die, bastard, he would say, as after saying that, he would throw his body towards the ground, instantly killing him. And after doing so, he would start to clean the blood off his spear, as he would say this. Hey God, as after saying that, everybody was just like conflicted. But most of all, his childhood best friend, and also her friend, aka Zenobia and Irina, were there. As for Aisha, she was also crying, as he would say this. Hey, girls, are you okay? He would say, as one of them would say this. No, we're not okay, she would say, as he would say this. I know that God is dead, but still, as before they can say anything else, they would hear another thing coming. It was the sound of, as before they would hear the sound of flapping. As after hearing that, they would see a man. As the man seems to be wearing a simple red coat, as he would seem to have, wait for a second, god dang it. As everybody would see a man with a blackened coat with a, popped off color. As he would also seem to be, his hair is like, I guess you could say brownish, with, a blonde, with the blonde bangs. As his eyes would also seem to be, wait for a second, a little bit reddish, as he would say this. I guess you devil kids are pretty much strong, he would say. But, as he would start looking towards the, the Red Dragon Empress, aka, Issei, as he would say this. But it seems that this generation's Red Dragon Emperor, or in this case Empress, seems to be a little bit weaker than the last one, he would say, as she would say this. Wait, how did you, as before she can't say anything else, both, Sona and also Rias would say this. What are you doing here, she would say, like both of them, as he would say this. Oh, come on, besides, I'm just here to basically take care of him, he would say. As he would also look towards Izuku, who was done basically, basically still wiping off the blood from, Kokobil, as he would say this. I never seen a boy like you here before. Wait a minute. Never seen a sacred gear like that as well, he would say. As, when he was basically getting ready to, fall to the ground, both, Sona and, Rias would basically get ready their attacks, as they would say this. What are you doing here, Zazel? They would say both. like say the both of them, as everybody would freeze after hearing that name, including Izuku, as he would say this. Huh. So, Azazel, the leader of the Grimoire, and the leader of the fallen angels, he would say, as he would say this. Well, yep. And also, I'm here just to take care of this guy, he would say, as we currently see now a dead Kokobeel, as he would say this. Don't worry, he's dead, he would say. As after saying that, he would start leaning on his, on his secret gear, as he would say this. Mind telling me what is your name, young man, he would say, as he would say this. Izuku Midoriya. But, you can also call me the soon-to-be pawn of, or at least, wait a minute, he would say, hey, what exactly is your, how many pieces do you have left, he would say, as she would say this. She would start looking at Izuku, as she would just look away, as she would say, I got 4 pawns, she would say, as he would say this. Well, I'm going to be the soon-to-be pawn of, Sona, he would say, as he would say this. Huh. So, are you perhaps a soon-to-be, are you perhaps a user of a sacred gear? Actually, I'm not even going to, question that, he would say, as he would say this. Well, yeah, he would say, but, I'm still pretty much new to this, he would say, as he would say this. Wait a minute. You said that you're new, on what day did you awaken your, as he would say this? Well, just now, he would say. As after hearing that, he would just fall to the ground, as he would say, excuse me, what? He would say, as he would say this. Whoa, calm down, he would say. I mean, it's, actually, you said that you're supposed to be the, leader of the Grimoire, but you're acting more like, as he would say this. No, I'm just a bit surprised after hearing that, he would say. But, may I ask, what's the name of your, sacred gear exactly, he would say, as he would say this. Why do you ask, he would say with a defensive tone, as he would say this. Oh, nothing, I'm just a bit of a, researcher in, secret gears, he would say. As after hearing that, he would say this to himself. Huh, it kinda sounds like me. Whatever, he would say. As after saying that to himself, he would say this. Oh, it's called, Dracul, he would say, as he would say this. Dracul, you say, he would say. As after saying that, they would also hear the sound of more flapping nearby. Actually, it's not really flapping, it's more sounds like, thrusters. As they would see a blinding light. As after seeing that, they would see a armored man, or whatever that thing is. He seems to be covered in armor, with glowing white wings, with, boosters that seem to be, bursting with blue energy, as the person would say this. Azazel, as he would say this. Oh, hey Valley, he would say, as he would say this. Or, actually they don't really know the gender because it's super modulated, the mask, or at least the armor, as she would say this. Or he, or whatever at this point, as, they would say this. So, may I ask, is one of you the Red Dragon Empress? Or Emperor in this case, or whatever he would say, or they would say, as Issei would say this. Yeah, she would say, as they would say this. So, you're the Red Dragon Empress, she would say, as she would say this. Yeah. So what, she would say, as everybody would just look at the armor, as one of them would speak up saying this. Wait, that's the, as one of them would say this. The dividing gear, they would say, or more specifically, Sona, as Izuku would look over to the person, as he would say this. The dividing gear, he would say, as he would say this. Wait, Chuck did tell me, or at least my, Vlad told me that my secret gear is also mixed between, mixed, or at least 50%, not really 50%, but more like, wait for a second, let me just do the math. Yeah, 40%, vanishing gear, 40% boosting gear, and, and 20%, other shit. In this case, mostly mythology. It's more like Jack just goes like, time to make the most overpowered thing imaginable. Actually, that's just me. Anyway, continuing on with the episode. As after, saying that to himself, he would think, so basically, I'm basically a mix between their secret gears, he would say to himself. As after saying that, she would say this. More, or they, as in, the one with the, vanishing gear. As, or, not vanishing, I meant divided gear. As she would say this, or he. You're not that strong, she would say, or he. As she would say this. What? Why did you, as, she would say this. Not only did you lose to Kokabeel, and let your little boyfriend over there basically won it for you. Not only that, she would say, you're absolutely pathetic, she would say, or he. As after hearing this, she would start becoming a little bit mad, as she would say this. What is your deal, she would say. Well, she would say, or he, well, we are eternal rivals. Eternal rivals, she would say. Actually, it sounded, after saying that, it sounds more like a she and my god. No. As, she would say this. Well, we are eternal rivals after all. After all, me, Drake, or at least your sacred gear over there, aka Drake over there, and my sacred gear, including me and, Albion, are meant to fight. And no matter what, when we reincarnate, no matter when, no matter how, we will kill each other, she would say. As after saying that, both of them would start doing like a little staring contest at each other. As, a bit of tension would be in the air. As, Azazel would say this. Hey, Valley, calm down over there, he would say this. I meant to say that, as he would say this. Or she, or whatever at this point. As, she would say this, or he. Fine, she would say. As after saying that, she would start transforming back into her normal form, which would be revealed as a girl. She seems to be like an older girl, like somewhat like actually how old is Issei again? Issei is 17, and in this case, in this world, she is 17. So yeah, this girl, or at least the girl that's basically the wielder of the dividing gear, seems to be about like 2 years older than them. More specifically, about 19. As she would say this. You're absolutely out of my league, she would say, as she would flip her hair. As after doing so, she would basically start to, move towards Izuku as well. As after doing so, she would look up at Izuku. Not really look up, but more like look down, because Izuku, well, he's shorter than her. As, as she would say this. And as for you, she would say, as after looking into Izuku's eyes, which were still pretty much changed after, fighting, Kokabeel, because at the time, he was also using, a bit of, his Ukako to basically fly. Sort of. As his eyes were, pretty much, blood red, while the, actual, white parts of the eyes are completely black, as she would say this. You're absolutely unique, she would say. As Azazel would, finally notice the weird-looking wings on his back, and would say, wait, is that also your sacred gear, he would say? As he would say this. Well, no, but before he can actually do anything else, or at least, talk, she would basically grab him by the chin, as she would say this. You're absolutely unique, she would say. As after doing so, most of the girls there would basically start becoming a little bit jealous. And for some odd reason, a certain little, reverse chop over there is starting to become a little bit conflicted. I should say, wait, why is she touching Izuku? She would say, wait, why am I concerned about Izuku? She would say, she would start, thinking to herself, I mean, he did, save me, but still, she would start, shaking her head a little bit, while the others are currently, pretty much mad. And she would say this. You're absolutely unique, she would say. Especially with your wonderful eyes, she would say. As after saying that, she would say this. Why not ditch that pathetic little, so-called Red Dragon Empress, but instead, How about you go out with me, she would say. As Izuku was just like dumbstruck, including the others. As we also see, currently, burning up Sona, as Sona would say this. You, she would say. As after saying that, she would say this. Oh, what is it, Citrus Era, she would say. As after saying that, she would say this. Well, as you don't know right now, me and Izuku are going to be married, she would say. As she was a little bit surprised, as she would say, huh, is that perhaps a arranged marriage, she would say. As she would say this. Well, no, she would say. As she would say this. I see. As after saying that, she would look back at Izuku, as she would grab him by the face and, yeah, would, force her mouth into his, causing everybody to just be stunned, including, Azazel. As Azazel would just go like, hey, yo, the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, his face was just like, for some odd coincidence, I sort of had this meme on my trash, so, yeah, I'm just gonna be a bit lazy and just use it. So, just imagine, like, the Pikachu face on Azazel. As after, doing that, she would basically let go of the kiss. I should say this. How about that? Why not just leave the pathetic excuse for a, wait for a second, a pathetic excuse for the Red Dragon Empress, and instead go for me, she would say, as she would look at him with a lust in her eyes. As Izuku was just like, the fuck, he would say to himself, as currently would also hear, well, Dracula, aka, I was about to say Cocobile, the fuck? I meant, Vlad, as he would say this. Are you okay, he would say, as he would say this. Do I feel like I'm okay, he would say, as we would also feel, or at least, actually, yeah, feel that, oh boy, let's just say extreme, and I mean extreme ass, bloodlust. As, we would also see a pretty much, angry ass, a pretty much angry ass, wait for a second, a pretty much angry ass, Issei, and not only that, a somewhat, angry ass, Kiba, as she's currently, getting ready to summon in a few more swords. And as for, Irina, Zenobia, and, surprisingly, Aisha seemed to be also angry. Actually, just imagine Aisha wielding a Glock. God damn. So after doing so, she would say this. Now, can we leave Azazel, she would say, as he would say this. Oh yeah, he would say, he would basically snap out of the little trance, as he would say, so I guess, I think she found, something to love, he would say to this, like he would say this to himself, as after, basically, making a little portal, she would say this. Oh, and by the way, you can call me Valley, she would say, as she would basically blow a kiss at Izuku, as it would cause him to basically pale even more, as the rest of the girls are maybe planning to basically torture her. Oh god. And so, here comes another girl. Another one bites the dust. Oh god. So yeah, after going into the portal, they would basically leave. So, after leaving, Izuku would look over and would see everybody else pretty much pissed off. As Izuku would say this. Are you okay, guys? He would say. As one of them would say this. Oh, do we look okay? Said, a pretty angry ass Riaz. As a pretty much, calm, sort of calm, I was almost about to say Zenobia. I meant, wait for a second, a pretty calm, Sona, as she would say this. Hey, Izuku, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah? As after looking over, he would see, well, not a calm, not a really calm, and don't you dare. I sounded like it was like I'm saying like the certain word for the, for white stuff, and, but either way, after, well, after looking at, Sona, he would notice her basically having this, well, instead of a calm as, demeanor, instead, she would have an aura of absolute anger and rage. As he would say this, yeah, he would say, as she would say this, well, can you come to the, can you come with me to the, well, wait for a second. Can you come with me to the, student council office, she would say. As after saying that, he would say this, sure, he would say, as she would basically grab him by the arm, as she would basically start bringing him to the, to the student council office. As she would say this, oh, and by the way, guys, she would say, as she would looked at the rest of her peerage, including, Tsubaki, as she would say this, can you also come with me, she would say with an angry tone, as everybody would start to pale after hearing that, because that demeanor is definitely not concerning. Actually, it's quite the opposite, very freaking concerning. And so, after saying that, all of them would start following her, mostly her peerage. And so, after basically leaving, everybody would just start looking at towards, everybody would start looking at each other, as they would say this. I wonder where they're going, all of them would say. Basically, like, actually there's no guys, so, yeah. Actually, if there is guys, I can just imagine Kiba going like, Dorime, Nitarino Rata Dorime, for his fucking soul. So, yeah, anyway, continuing on. But also, we also currently see, Kiba basically thinking to herself, why am I having these feelings towards Izuku, she would say. I mean, he protected me, but why am I, she would start, thinking about Izuku after, sacrificing himself to basically protect her, as she would start, feeling her heart basically, going faster and faster after thinking about it more. So, going back to Izuku and also, her, aka, Sona, as she would say this. So, Izuku, she would say, as after, not Issei, I meant Sona would say that, Izuku would say this, yeah, Sona, honey, he would say, as after saying that, she would say this, well, I think it's time for you to finally join my peerage, she would say, as after hearing that, she would say this, well, I was actually meaning to tell you that, she would say, as she would say this, good, now, as after saying that, she would basically bring up a few, pawn pieces, as she would say this, now, I'm gonna be giving you 2 pawn pieces, she would say, as she would say this, good idea, he would say, as after saying that, she would basically start to, grab the 2 pawn pieces, and would start doing the chant, saying, now, my dear Izuku Midoriya, do you wish to become a pawn of the Sutri household? As he would say this, I do, he would say, and so the pawn pieces would start to move towards his chest, and so after doing so, they would basically, go inside of him, and soon, Izuku would become the pawn of the Sutri household, more specifically to Sona Sutri, as she would say this, now, I pledge you, as my pawn, she would say, as he would say this, I'll gladly serve under you, he would say, as after saying that, he would summon out, not really summon out, but more like bring out his, Quinque, as his Quinque would basically, be, put towards the ground, as after doing so, he would say this, now, that was easy, he would say, as after saying that, he would start, looking at his body a little bit, noticing that he would gain, devil-like wings, while the rest of his, fallen angel wings are currently just like normal, and it seems that the fallen angel slash holy energy and the devil energy seem to be conflicting, but it started becoming a little bit normal-ish after a few seconds, as he would say this, I'm guessing after gaining the devil-like energy, I think I might be able to basically, how do we say this? That's basically canceling out, that it's basically canceling out, some of the, weaknesses of some devils. More specifically, holy objects, holy water, things of that sort. He would say this to himself. As after saying that to himself, he would look towards Sona as he would say this. Hey Sona, he would say, as she would say this. Yeah, she would say with a little bit of a pout, as he would say this. Well, I'm, a bit sorry for letting her basically do that to me, he would say. As after hearing that, she would say this. Oh, yeah, she would say, as she would say this. How would I make you feel a little bit better, she would say, as she would say this. How? But before she was able to say that, she would basically get a little bit of peck on the kiss, a little bit of a, peck on the, on the cheek. As after getting that little kiss, the rest of the other, council members were just like, hold up. Like, all of them would just have that Pikachu face. As, Sona would start to blush. And blush. And blush. And blush. And blush. As, her face was just just instantly red. As smoke would start to come out of her, ears. As he would say this. Hey, Sona, are you okay? As she would say this. Fine, she would say. As she would start to have these, swirls in her eyes. That, certain, genre of, flustered face for anime girls. Well, just imagine that. As, after doing so, Izuku would say this. Well then, that was a pretty tiring day, he would say. And quite the eventful one, he would say. As she would say this. Yeah, I do have to agree, she would say. As after saying that, she would start looking at Izuku as she would say this. Hey Izuku, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah? He would start looking at, Sona as he would say this. Well, I want to, say this to you. As he would say this. Yeah? As she would say this. I love you, she would say. As he would say this. Yeah, I kinda do, he would say. As after saying that, both of them would just start to look at each other. As, currently, Sanji is basically thinking to himself, God, I wish I had a girlfriend. He would start thinking this to himself. After saying that, we go back to Izuku and, Sona, as he would tell her that he's going to be leaving now. As after saying that, he would start leaving. But while he was leaving, he would notice, outside, outside of the room, or literally directed at the door, he would see, both the girls, specifically, both, Zenobia and also, Irina, as Zenobia would say this. Hey Zuko, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah, he would say, as, Irina would say this. Well, you see, because of what we learned, we can't go back to the church, she would say, as he would say this. I see, he would say. As, after hearing that, she would say this. So, hey, Miss Citri, she would say, as, one of them's, not really one of them, but more Sona would say this. Yes, Miss Irina, she would say. As Irina would say this. Well, can you please let me be a part of your period, she would say. As after hearing that, everybody would just be shocked. As she would say this. Huh. Well then, why not, she would say. As after hearing that, everybody would just be, surprised. As one of them would say this. I see, said, one of them. As she would say this. Thank you, she would say. As she would bow down, as she would say this. Now, let's just, let us basically start the process, she would say. As she would start, as she would start, doing the chant, as after doing so, Irina would become, a new member of the, of the secret household, as she would basically jump on Izuku, as she would say this. Hey, Izuku, she would say, as Izuku would say this. Hey, Irina, stop doing that, he would say, as she would say this. We're now part of the same period, she would say, as he would say this. Yeah, I know, but please stop touching me, he would say. But we also see, Zenobia, as she would say this. Huh. But both of you look nice together, she would say, as he would say this. Hey, Zenobia, he would say, as she would say this. Yeah, she would say, as he would say this. Well, I heard that, one of the, rook pieces for a certain, redheaded, a certain, like, red-haired girl over there, aka, wait for a second, aka, Riaz, also has a special rook piece. Apparently, she didn't really use it, so maybe you can maybe join her as well. As after saying that, she would say, really then? She would say, as she would say this. Fine then, she would say. As after saying that, she would start leaving, as she would say this. Goodbye, Irina. I'll be going back, to Izuku's house later, she would say. As she would say this. Goodbye, Zenobia, she would say. As after saying that, everybody would start looking at each other, as Izuku would say this. So, hey, I'm gonna be leaving now. How about you, Irina, he would say, as she would say this. I'll be staying with the rest of with the rest of our new peers, she would say, as he would say this. Well then, he would say, try not to, do anything drastic, he would say, said, Izuku, as, sit, the Citri, air, aka, best girl, which, you can't tell me otherwise. I like girls with, like, short hair, and are kind of, like, fucking smart. And I also like fucking tomboys, but still. But either way, wait for a second, god dang it. As Sona would say this. Don't worry, she would say. I'll just teleport her back to your house, she would say. As he would say this. Well then, bye, he would say. As after saying that, he would start leaving. So, we go to a different perspective. So, at the time where, they were basically bouting, are more like, not really like, different perspective, but more like, a little like, actually, how do I say that? It's more like, while, like during the whole, like, fighting between, Izuku and Kokubile, we currently see, two people in the Kendo Club. As one of them would say this. What the hell is going on? Said, one of them. As she would say this. I don't know, but as you would start looking out the window, and you would see Izuku fighting against Kokubile. Basically using his, his fallen angel-like wings. Imagine it back in, like, episode... Wait for a second. Just imagine it just like in the, in the previous episode. As after doing so, he would start fighting against, some more people. As, one of them would say this. You know what is going on? As, one of them would say this. I don't know, but it's definitely something we're not supposed to learn. As one of them would say this. So, you don't think, what the hell is going on, she would say. As she would say this. I seriously don't know. I seriously don't know. Katase. After saying that, the girl would be revealed as one of the Kendo Club, representatives, aka Katase. Oh boy, let's just say that's going to be a chaotic next episode when we go back to, to what if Deku was in, high school DxD. Maybe like in the next episode. Maybe like they will confront him. Yeah, that's not even a maybe. As one of them would say this. Yeah, I seriously don't know. Like, why does he have those things? She would say. Wait, is that Rias? Is that, Rias-sama, she would say? As one of them would say this. Wait, it really is, said one of them. As it would be revealed to be the brown-eyed, brown-haired girl, Murayama. As she would say this. Wait, are those wings, she would say? They look like demon wings, she would say. As one of them would say this. This can't be happening. This must be a dream, she would say. As they would also notice, Kiba basically fighting as, she was about to get attacked by, by this weird, not really thousand, but more like 10-winged man, as Izuku would jump in and would basically take the damage. As both of them would gasp, as would say, Izuku, like both of them would basically say, as they would basically run out of the, out of the Kendo Club and would start, hiding in a nearby, area of the school. As after, that, they would also see a burst of light. After seeing that, they would also see Izuku once again. Now, with his several wings and wearing, weird looking gauntlets and also boots. As he would also wield a spear as he once again starts fighting the man. And after the fight. And so, we, basically skip back to, go back to present, to the present as everybody's, or at least everybody's basically now leaving. Including, Zenobia, which is now, where she's now currently a member of the, of the, of Riaz's peerage. But we also go back to, to the two, friends, aka Moriyama and also Katase. Sorry about that. Wait a second. And also Katase. As both of them would say that, both of them would say this. So, what are they, they would say? As, Katase would say this. I don't know, but we should try and confront, Izuku about it, she would say. As one of them would say this. Wait, what if he starts, avoiding us, she would say. As she would say this. I don't know, but we need to get answers, she would say. As, Murayama would say this. I guess you're right, Katase, she would say. As, after saying that, they would start leaving. And after leaving, they would start getting ready to go, getting ready for class tomorrow. And so, both of them would basically go to sleep. And we go back to Izuku as Zenobia and Irina basically came back as they're now new members of, of both the, of both the Sona, of this, of Sona's peerage and also, of, Riaz's peerage, respectively. And so, both of them would basically go to sleep on the, on the futons, while Izuku would basically go to sleep on his bedroom, in his bedroom, while the other three fallen angels would go to their separate rooms. Not really separate rooms, I meant, they're, not really separate rooms. I mean, both of them are basically like, two of them specifically, Millet and Rainer, were basically like sleeping together, while, Calendar is basically sleeping by herself, but either way, all of them would basically fall asleep. So, yeah, so, this will be the end of this episode, and so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!